Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Chocolate Saiyan, The One, Sleeping Warrior, Righteous Force, Paul Hall, Flatzoid, Arwin, and I believe 10th Man. Very good to have you all, one and all. Hello, hello, hello.
Make some noise.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. And we've also got a whole bunch of people on Discord. So hello everyone on Discord.
10th man in Discord today.
Oh, hello there. Any signs of Earth curvature? Anybody?
Definitely no signs of Earth curvature, no.
Not from Pico Rivera.
Not on this one.
Anybody think there's any evidence of curvature in Discord by any chance?
Yeah, there's all kinds of evidence.
Oh, really? Like what?
Any
Like what,
evidence
Brett?
for flat Earth?
That's not the question. Any evidence of Earth curvature? That's the positive claim that's being made.
We have presented evidence for curvature. Do you have evidence for flat Earth?
So present it.
No, it's been presented.
I couldn't give a crap. We're asking for it to be presented now. Either present it or shut up.
Ships go over the curve. Ships go over the curve of the horizon. Sunsets.
Horizon is a not actual location. We've covered this with you, Brenda. So did you just ignore all of the rebuttals when you presented this last time?
You making claims doesn't make things true.
Sorry, the horizon is a not actual location. Do you believe that the horizon, this position you believe the boat's going over, a reified edge of your sphere, is an actual location? Because you can't reach the horizon. It's not an actual location.
Just because you can't reach it doesn't mean it's actual. Or
It
not
isn't actual.
The horizon is a real.
They've just said just because you can't reach it doesn't make it not actual. Yeah, it's not actual. It's not real. The fact that you're about to reify your sphere edge into that position, which is precisely what you claimed, 4 days ago? And you've ignored every word we've said. Every single word.
The horizon is a circle centered on the observer, right? That describes the edge of the sphere.
Yeah, that's your reification fallacy. You've literally parroted the exact same claims you made last time you were here. So that is your automatic assumption that the arbitrary position where the sky appears to meet the ground is actually your reified edge of a sphere you're presupposing in this example now. Because you're saying it's the leading edge of a sphere. Reification,
Yeah, that
begging the
point
question.
That point is a real position on the sphere, on the globe.
Yeah, and you're reifying the horizon into that position.
No, it's the limit that you can see on
a
any
sphere.
globe object.
Yeah, we heard last time. We pummeled it last time. You dictating that we must accept that the horizon is in fact the leading edge of a sphere is your A, reification fallacy, and B, begging the question fallacy. These are exactly the same rebuttals you had offered to you last time. Now, you haven't that time or this time in any way, shape or form acknowledged that by dictating to us that the horizon is actually the leading edge of the sphere, that's your reification of your sphere model for Earth into the horizon. And also your example starts with Earth being a sphere. You're saying it's the leading edge of a sphere because that's what Earth is according to you. That's a begging the question fallacy. So same as last time, you've given us a begging the question fallacy and a reification fallacy. In fact, same as last time, 2 reification fallacies, because you've also reified that leading edge of the sphere, reification fallacy times 1, into the horizon, reification fallacy times 2, a not actual location that you're telling us is a physical position, the edge of a sphere. No, it isn't. So 3 fallacies, same as last time, exactly the same.
Well, number one, spheres don't have edges. And they don't have leading edges.
What sphere
Those
are you
words.
talking about, Brenda?
Those are words.
What
What
sphere?
sphere?
Yeah, good point, Chocolate. What sphere? The one that you're going to reify Earth into being, or this one that you're holding in your hand describing?
If spheres don't have an edge, what edge
For
would
any-
you think that we are on?
For any sphere, for an observer on the sphere,
Yeah, you keep
there is a
reifying your
point
Earth
that
sphere. You keep talking about spheres. Yeah, you haven't addressed the fact that I've pointed out this is begging the question. Now you're going to babble on about bloody spheres. Yeah, when Chocolate said what sphere, yeah, the reply from you, in actuality, although you haven't verbalised it, is the one I'm going to reify Earth into being. Yeah, the fallacy I've levelled at you and you haven't acknowledged or addressed. So what sphere? Your reified sphere. Your reified Earth sphere. That's what sphere. You didn't answer, Chocolate, and you haven't addressed anything I've rebutted your claim with. Same as I did last time.
Okay, I understand your problem. Science builds on previous
You used the
knowledge.
same shit last time. Science builds on previous understanding. No, it doesn't. It establishes cause and effect based on systematic experimentation performed after formulating a viable hypothesis. So no, it doesn't build on past experience. I also... Is it time you start interrupting the same rebuttals I gave to you last time that you hand-waved, ignored, and are now parroting rinse and repeat style now? Don't talk through me. I also pointed out... Why am I bothering? I've gone through this once with you and you hand-waved and ignored everything last time. So far, right, now you're going to get a chance to actually acknowledge what I've said. Do you appreciate that the horizon, a not actual location, an apparent position where the sky appears to meet the ground, is not the leading edge of a reified sphere you keep talking about? That's called a reification fallacy, times 2. I'd like you to at least acknowledge what I've said. Otherwise, you can't take part in a conversation. You're just rinsing and repeating, ignoring everything that's challenged when you state that boats go over this reified position.
I acknowledge what you said, but I'm talking about the true horizon. You're talking about the apparent horizon.
There's only one horizon. There is only one horizon. It's not 2. There's 1. There's only one horizon. It's a not actual location. You saying there's 2, one that's actual, physical, is your reification. That is the fallacy you've committed. You're just yet to address that either. Still haven't addressed it. You've said, oh, I acknowledge it. But then there's actually 2 horizons. No, there's 1. A not actual position. Simple. Not 2, 1.
It's a true horizon because for any sphere.
So she's ignored me and reified the sphere for a third time.
For any sphere.
So on any sphere,
ridiculous.
chocolate. So that's you reasserting your reification fallacy on any sphere. So Earth in this example's a sphere then?
Yes.
That's a reification and begging the question fallacy. So in your example,
no.
Shut up. In your example, the thing you're trying to prove, Earth's sphericity, is already established as a premise at the outset of your example. So Earth is a sphere already in your example. That's begging the question, love. You're too thick to get it.
I'm not trying to prove the Earth is a sphere.
Well, then why are you here? Why are you talking about sphere Earths and boats going over them? Why am I getting rumpus from my own panel? Why are you talking about boats going over a sphere Earth horizon then? You're just here to chit-chat? No mates?
Because the boats going over horizon is a prediction of the model.
What model?
The
stutter, fuck up your own mic globe model that you're presupposing when you're trying to prove Earth's a sphere with this example that matches your model that you are reifying ×2. One, by way of assuming Earth's a sphere, by setting out the example with it taking place on a sphere, begging the question fallacy, and 2, the reification thereof, Earth being a sphere, and reification x2, horizon into actual location. So we haven't had any of this addressed. You've reasserted it 4 times. You are begging the question. You are telling us Earth's a sphere in your example, and then telling us what spheres do. You are reifying the edge of your sphere into a not actual location. You're never going to address any of this crap. You didn't address it last time. You're not addressing it this time. And undoubtedly the next words out of your mouth will be your reification of a sphere and telling us about how the horizon's got boats going over it. Correct?
Scientific hypotheses.
No, shut up about science. You've got it that wrong too. No, it doesn't build on past predictions. I've already explained this to you and you've hand-waved it and repeated that shit too. So no, it doesn't build on past ideas or concepts. It establishes cause and effect with experiment. You're wrong. Don't tell me again what science does. You're incorrect.
I'm incorrect that scientific models...
Sorry, scientific models. So there's a model that you have that you can give us as an example that's been based on experimentation then. What model's been based on experimentation? Give me this scientific model.
Is a sphere.
Not the model, any model. Give me an example of any model that's been based on scientific experimentation. Validity given through cause and effect relationships. Give me that. Not your bloody model that's definitely not scientific.
It's a sphere. That's
what,
the model.
Just bloody spouting your religious belief isn't going to fucking cut it.
It's a sphere.
Can you calm down, guys? Yeah, just spouting your religious belief isn't going to help you. I've asked you for a scientifically valid model, given that you've said models are scientifically valid, and then just juxtapose that with your fucking model. No. What model's been scientifically valid? Give me a single example.
The spherical...
No, it hasn't. There's no scientific validity to the sphere model. Zero. You won't offer up a single experiment in regards to that sphere model. None. There isn't any.
Oh, yeah, the Euripides experiment. Yeah.
What was the Euripides experiment?
Which was it? What? How do you pronounce his name?
Anyway.
Oh my god.
You don't even know your argument you're about to forward?
It's okay if people misspeak. That's okay. It's okay if you do it. It's okay.
Brenda, why don't you take 5 minutes, go have a
argument.
coffee or something?
What experiment are you talking about?
The sticks and the well.
That presupposes
Conducted by the
Earth's sphericity. It makes it plain in every example,
No.
even on Wiki, that the assumption of Earth being a sphere is part of the premise for that measurement.
Yeah, that's how science works.
What, assuming that you're on a fucking sphere? No, it doesn't. That's called begging the question. That's made... So you're going to ignore it and say, that's perfectly acceptable, that's science? I've asked for a scientific experiment. You've offered Aristophanes as an experiment. It's not. It's a measurement that assumes sphericity. He also begged the question. So this is not an experiment. You're wrong. Your model's not based on experiment. This is not an experiment. It has no independent variable. It has no dependent variable. It's not an experiment. You're wrong.
Science uses...
Don't tell me what science is. You are incorrect. This so-called experiment by you is not an experiment. Address that now.
Of course this is an experiment.
What was the independent variable? What was the hypothesis?
The independent variable was the distance.
Distance is a concept. That's not an independent variable. It's not an independent variable. You're automatically wrong. Distance doesn't cause anything. If distance is not an independent variable, you are incorrect, as asserted correctly by me moments earlier. This is not an experiment. You've stated that your globe model is based on experiment. No, it isn't. The first chance you had to offer one failed. Your independent variable being distance is not a cause.
Of course it does. On a sphere.
Oh, don't just go to begging the question. Why do you automatically jump to, I'm going to beg the bloody question and say on a sphere? Why is it that you can only beg the question, and on, 6 occasions when I've pointed it out that you're begging the question, your response is to beg the question again? Not acknowledge that you're begging the question, automatically assuming your outcome. You haven't done any of that. You just repeat it again 5 more times. You're guilty of assuming the outcome. Assuming that which you are trying to prove. Stating overtly that your example will take place on a sphere when you're trying to prove sphericity, only to later say, I'm not trying to prove sphericity. You're a complete buffoon.
Because I'm using modus tollens, not modus ponens.
I couldn't give a shit what you're using. You haven't got any scientific validity to the assertion you've made. You've begged the question and used a reification fallacy in 2 examples so far. And from there on in, all you've done every time I've pointed that out is ignored it.
Well, part of the scientific process...
Don't tell me what the scientific process is. Again, I'll say how many times I'm just going to keep repeating it till you actually acknowledge your dumb, stupid idiocy. So, you have begged the question. Assume the thing you are trying to prove, that would be sphere Earth, by stating that your example takes place on a sphere. That is the very definition of begging the question. Now, don't just beg the question again. Don't tell me what science does when you absolutely have no clue, having declared that Aristophanes has done a scientific experiment. He hasn't. He has, however, done as you have done and begged the question, assumed sphericity. So are you ever going to address any of the fallacies you've committed, or is it on to just circle jerk me back to either boats go over the horizon, or saying that you're just going to assume a sphere, or saying that it's backed by science when it isn't? Ever going to address any of these rebuttals, love?
I'll address it directly right now. If the Earth is flat, we will observe X. We do not observe X.
What the fuck? You're going to formulate denying the antecedent for me when I'm asking you about your logical fallacies? You're going to start a new logical fallacy? I'm asking you to address...
That's modus...
I don't want you to tell me what modus tollens is. I'm asking you to address the logical fallacies you've used so far. That would be assuming your outcome, begging the question, assuming the example, i.e. it's on a sphere to begin with, therefore Earth's a sphere. Yeah? That would be a logical fallacy. Also, reification. Your sphere model is not the ground we're standing in. It's a model. That's called reification fallacy. And then the horizon, a not actual position, reified into your sphere model. So you're never going to address these. Last chance, then you're getting kicked out.
I have addressed them.
Oh, well then good. Then you don't need to add anything else then, do you? Good. That means you don't need to add anything. You've already addressed it. Good. I'm sure the audience will be able to glean your exceptional responses that you've already given, you complete dumb fuck. Right. Before we move on to the only second, I can't believe it, 20 minutes into the show, second housekeeping question. FlatEarthChannel.com. Really appreciate your patronage and your super chat. So he says, good morning. Good morning to you too, the FlatEarthChannel.com. Also, good servant. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. And then the flying to Miami from Toronto to meet with Chris, Red Pill Philosophy, for a live stream tomorrow. Watch Game Programmer Proves Flat Earth Part 2 on his channel tomorrow. Wow, very, very cool, the FlatEarthChannel.com. I will tune in tomorrow to Red Pill Philosophy. Thank you also very much for the super chat. And also, shout out to Alexander. See if I'll scroll up and find your super chat. It's the last one on the list, so I can't see it in my abbreviated list of super chats, but hopefully, here we go. There was not a single proof for the globe Earth in 1036 FED shows. 2,000 more shows, and then a little winky face. Thank you very much for the super chat. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-space variety?
Nope.
Definitely not.
Nope. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope. I don't even
Can't
know.
have scientific evidence of a concept.
Gravity is a made-up bullshit story. Gravity never existed.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope.
What's the sun?
I have no idea. Sorry.
No apparent.
Oh, okay.
No apparent distance.
Any viable scientific hypothesis in the entirety of the histories of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics?
No, they don't fall under scientific methods. These are not sciences. They're pseudoscience.
Any evidence of a
So that would be a
self-perpetuating
no.
Go ahead.
So I said that would be a no then.
Yeah, that'll be a no. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yes, but only in movies. And
That's no
movies
good.
are not reality.
Too much presupposing.
Saunders says, for $5, hey Nathan, how do you convert meters into kilometres? Question mark. Not exactly a flat earth question, but thank you very much for the super chat. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
Anthony Riley.
Oh, got Paul's screen ready to be presented, it looks like on this very subject.
Or Poho.
Looks like from that depiction you can't have gas pressure without a container. The gas would fill the available volume.
Hey, listen, I do have an update from Danny Faulkner on his position regarding gravity. You know the guy that wrote the book, Nathan, that where he conveniently or accidentally forgot to mention the current science on gravity. He's updated his position, fresh off the press. Would you like me to read his or share and show you what he's now saying about gravity, given that he's wrote a book about it very recently and didn't mention Einstein at all?
Yes, please.
There's a bit of a concession in here, so we'll have to credit him for a little bit of a concession, but we're just going to have to look at how he's flip-flopped, because he's realized that actually I'm not actually trolling him. I'm actually challenging his position based on what he claims in his book. Are you ready for this? It's quite long, but bear with me. So just give me 2 minutes to read it. It says, in Newtonian theory, gravity is a force that acts across empty space. Physicists call this action at a distance. How does gravity do this? Newtonian theory has no explanation. Albert Einstein published his theory of general relativity a century ago. Yeah, World War I is a better way to describe that. General relativity attempts to explain gravity's action at a distance. According to general relativity, the presence of matter bends four-dimensional space-time. Objects move on paths called geodesics through space-time. As objects encounter the curvature of space-time caused by other masses, their geodesics depart from their linear path that they would have otherwise follow. It is this departure that we perceive as acceleration due to gravity, perceive being the key word. If one looks at the world in only this way, then in some sense, one could say that gravity isn't a force. This has prompted some prominent physicists to make statements to this effect. Well, is he calling me a prominent physicist by any chance, or is he referring to others? Anyway, it is these statements that flat earthers like to trumpet. The problem is, these same physicists also make statements in other contexts that make it clear that gravity is a force. Are they being inconsistent? No. In physics, there usually is more than one way of looking at a problem. Within general relativity, one doesn't have to view gravity as being a force, but that doesn't mean gravity isn't a force. Pure doublespeak. As with studying scripture, discussing physics properly sometimes requires context. Flat earthers have run off with misunderstandings of what they have read. Gravity is a force. So I just given 12 citations for Danny Faulkner that gravity is not a force, and then this idiot Chris Hardy claims he's refuted them all, and I'm waiting for Mr. Faulkner to respond. But at least we've got progression now. At least he knows who Einstein is. So shout out to Danny Faulkner for finding the current science.
Wait. So did he really basically double down on it's not a force, but you could think of it?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
That,
What he's saying is that,
read that line again, man, please.
what he's saying is that now he acknowledges that Einstein exists, but he's saying it's simply an interpretation, right? He's not saying it's the current science. He's saying it's simply one way to interpret what we're watching, which I tend to actually agree with him. That doesn't mean that I agree with Einstein. It doesn't mean I disagree with Einstein. It doesn't mean I agree with Newton. It doesn't mean I disagree with Newton. It's just one way of interpreting what we're looking at. Now, there is another way. We can say that, well, if we manipulate the medium, we can make something move, and that will be called relative density. And if we create this equilibrium, the object will move, and it'll seem to defy gravity. But we control that. It's within scientific method, and it explains all parts of it. But Danny Faulkner now seems to be addressing Einstein, which is fantastic because he's completely forgot about him in his book. But the bit that you asked me to read is... it says, as objects encounter the curvature of space-time, it is this departure that we perceive as acceleration due to gravity. If one looks at the world in only this way, then in some sense one could say gravity isn't a force. This has prompted some prominent physicists to make statements to this effect. It is these statements that flat earthers like to trumpet. The problem is, these same physicists also make statements in other contexts that make it clear that gravity is a force. Well, you can't make it clear that gravity is a force when it superseded Newton. So that's the bit that's the problem. But he's doubling down. Yeah, you're right.
So just before we go on, what is physics? What does physics deal with?
So I've said to Mr. Danny Faulkner in my response, no, Danny, nobody working within scientific method has treated gravity as a force since World War I. Perhaps you missed the memo, but even if you didn't, there is a much better paragraph. This is a much better paragraph than what you put in your book. It is directly relevant to the topic, and your omission from your book was explained on the basis that it was not relevant. Now you realize it is relevant. Good. You need to reconsider what the independent variable actually is in scientific experiment. Einstein's work, although the currently accepted science, does not have any experimental application like your area of expertise, astronomy. General relativity is purely observation-based only. There are no valid independent variables. This is paramount to science and falls outside and into pseudoscience. As Max Planck says, it's as beautiful as it is nothing more than poetry unless it complies with scientific method. No independent variable means it's outside, so although Einstein is the current position by science, it's nothing more than poetry, but for some reason has ended up being the position of science, astonishingly. Gravity is no more a force than Santa is real. Yeah, we see him and his reindeer. Doesn't mean he can fly around the earth delivering presents, though. Gravity is nothing more than Santa for adults.
He mentions physics. I can't remember the exact context. I didn't write it down. But what is physics? What does physics deal with? Clues in the first...
It's the study of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment.
Sorry, physical? Did you say?
Yeah.
Physical?
Physical, yeah. So,
by that definition, then, this good doctor could show me some physical space-time being bent, then.
That's why I said it was outside scientific method. They don't like me in there.
No. Can you read his section again where he talked about physics, please? Because either he's incompetent and doesn't understand what physics is, or he's under the misapprehension, or delusion, nay, that he can actually show us what he's talking about. That would be this geodesic, something following a line that's been bent in space-time. I'd like to see that in the physical and natural world if it's physics, as he seems to have described. Hopefully you'll be able to read that out again, that little section.
Which bit? About the geodesics?
He talks about physics specifically, if you can just do a search for the word physics or whatever you do to get to that word. But he specifically mentions physics.
He said physicists. This has prompted some prominent physicists to make some statements to this effect. In physics, there we go.
Whoever's got their mic open, hold on, Anthony. Whoever's got their mic open, can you close it, please?
He says, in physics, there usually is more than one way of looking at a problem. Within general relativity, one doesn't have to view gravity as being a force, but that it doesn't mean gravity is not a force.
So that's in physics, is it? This is the
That's
physical.
what he says, yeah.
This is the physical that he's talking about. He's incompetent. He doesn't understand what physics means.
I agree.
You're incompetent, Dr. Daniel Faulkner. Given that you've declared that that's physics, I'd like you to show me that in physicality, please. And then I'd like to see it being bent and manipulated, varied, if you will, to verify that it does actually cause the effect you're describing. So, I'd like to see it physically. That's my demand, given that that's his response to the complete horseshit he has levelled at our doorstep. Now you're being put to task. You will show us this which you claim is part of physics. Show us, Dr. Daniel Faulkner, that which you claim.
Ask the doctor.
George Musser, because gravity is not literally a force.
I just want to say as well, whilst I'm here, this particular group, it's a private group, right? I don't know how I've ended up in here, but I've ended up in here. And I got put in Facebook jail by this group the other day because I was challenging some of the things that they said. So the minute my shackles were released, basically I put a picture up and it says, do not challenge ballers in this group. They can spout any old nonsense without challenge. If you do challenge, be prepared to endure counter allegations that you are being personal rather than address the challenge. If it looks like you are winning, you will be silenced. And basically, I whinged and moaned that certain people in the group are able to spew anything that they want. But it seems to be the Danny Faulkner clown show. And he's got little warriors that work in his behalf. So the Chris and Diane will jump in his way if anybody dare challenge Danny Faulkner. And then if you do challenge them and start pointing out that people are saying things like gravity is a force when it's not a force, you'll get silenced. And that's what I was doing. I was protesting at being sent to Facebook jail.
What are the names?
Danny Faulkner, Chris Hardy. I mean, look at him. He's got a fantastic beard, but he claims to be an engineer. And somebody called Diane Allen. She's another one of his warriors that'll jump in his way like a human shield. Dare you challenge anything he says?
Chris Hardy and Diane Allen. Your priest has declared that gravity is part of physics. We're challenging him to show us that which he has claimed. That would be the physicality to the conceptual medium known as space-time. That which he believes can be bent, a physical action, in order to generate geodesics for things to travel along, even though you can't travel a concept. But nonetheless, that's what he's claimed. Now we want him to back that which he has claimed, given that he claims to be in authority. Seems to know what he's talking about, but is declaring things that are in physics are actually concepts that you can be debated about, discussed, changed, altered. No. Physical science, physics, would deal with the physical and natural world. And to provide any sort of validity to a claim you're making, causal, you would have to abide by the scientific method. The method established for empiricism when it comes to causal relationships. You're asserting cause and effect, and you're claiming it's physics. Lest you be deemed and labelled permanently a pseudo-scientist, you will now back your claim. If this is physics, show it me.
I've tried to get him to back his claim, and he won't. He just goes silent.
Tony?
I like the slight progress he's made because apparently now he's comfortable with admitting that there are physicists that claim that gravity isn't a force, because before he said that was some shit that only flat earthers were saying.
Yeah. But now he's just saying, at least just saying we're cherry picking.
Tony?
Oh yeah, that's cute.
Isn't it interesting how we're slowly being maneuvered out of like, nah, that's pure non-existent, to actually the higher guard getting more involved in an argument instead of just outright ignoring it? Like they can't get away from it anymore.
Yeah, because we're using their rhetoric against them. We understand what gravity is and what it is not. Daniel Faulkner doesn't. That's the bottom line. That's why I said that's just something flat earthers claim, and then has to justify that several prominent physicists make it plain that gravity's not a force in his rebuttal when being pointed out that gravity's not a force. The arrogance of this prick. Shout out to Vlad on Flat Earth. Says level does not curve into ball. Really appreciate your support, Vlad.
Tony?
Yo.
Can you ask Dr. Danny Faulkner a question? How big is a cubic hour?
Yeah, I think I might just do exactly that. If you write it down exactly the way you want me to do it, I'll just copy and paste it in and then see what he comes back with.
I'll get you in Skype.
Well, hang on. To be honest, it's a bit too early to ask him that because I think he's only just found him on Google or Wikipedia. So let's not get him to start explaining Einsteinian stuff if he's only just learnt out who he is.
Okay.
Yeah. He's just now conceding that the guy exists and that physicists actually don't say that gravity is not that gravity is a force. So yeah, we might have to give him a few minutes, but
Yeah, to do a bit of reading.
yeah.
He's only had
Good
100
progress,
years.
though. At least he acknowledges Einstein now. He didn't do that in his book. Might need to read. He might need to do a second edition.
Just check in with Paul. How are those gas particles doing in that open container there?
Not too well. Not too well at all. They're mostly gone. Speaking of which, we were talking about models earlier, and we were talking about gravity with Danny Faulkner. I want to jump to this metabunk calculator, or this metabunk simulator here, and let's talk about this for a second. Now, this is the globe argument from good old Mick. How'd you guys say that about Mick? I can't heard it on Ball Busters over the weekend.
Pseudo McWestian 2-space.
McWestian 2-space.
Okay, so we got pseudo 2-space here. This simulator has gravity built into it. If you go down to I don't know if you can see me highlighting it. It says 5,000, or I just changed it to 4,900. So I'm gonna change it back to 5,000. So the planet G is the gravity of the planet. And obviously, if you watch where it says particles near, if you just watch it over time, that number right there starts to decrease slowly over time. Which obviously you guys know the video I did showing that this over a 38-minute period or 37-minute period, that all these particles are pretty much gone, and there's only a handful left. So even their own model, using gravity, can't contain the gas.
What a shock. It never could. Back in the day, we used to say, yeah, have gravity. It's never going to overcome entropy. The gas is still going to fill the available volume. The gas will fill the space.
Well, and my question that I've been asking a lot lately is this, how many microstates is in space, or in the sky, so to speak? Well, that's part of entropy. Gas will want to fill any available microstate that it can possibly occupy. Well, how much in this view here, how many microstates do you think are in this, even in just this view here?
An infinitesimally large number.
Right. Do you think that the microstates that this occupies is more than the gas particles that are surrounding the blue marble, you think?
The number of available microstates is massive, so same answer. The gas will fill the space.
Yep. I'm just trying to use the entropy. I'm trying to use the entropy question so they make sure we understand entropy. That's all the reason I'm using that.
It's really too bad that me and John didn't have time to go at McWest about this nonsense when he was on 24/7. Because I think that would have been good.
I'm going to read out the one's questions. So these have been posted in one of the Skype group chats, Master B. How much time is there in a cubic meter of space? That's question 1. Number 2. How much space is in an hour? Oh, how much space is there in an hour? That's question 2. And question 3, how big is a cubic hour? Excellent questions, the one. Might need to work on your spelling.
Thank you. I was typing quick, sorry.
Stuff. Did you have anything more to add, Paul? got a reply from someone in there. It's from Jimbo. 2.3 parsecs per second. Squared.
No, that's all I have. That's all I have, Nathan. I'm just that gas will fill the volume even with gravity. That's all.
Perfect. Got a couple more housekeeping questions. 40 minutes into the show. Any evidence of the R value?
R. Nope.
We are winning.
Right, that's pretty much it. That concludes the housekeeping. I think I did cover all the other questions.
Oh, you forgot the astronomy one.
No, I didn't.
No.
No, I did cover that.
Nah, he did that earlier.
Oh, okay.
So shout out to Ranty Flat Earth. So subscribe today, 9 PM UK time. He's going to have Sleeping Warrior on. He's going to be talking about this very subject.
Cool.
Sleeping Warrior wants to say something about tonight.
Yeah. So my hot topic at the minute is gas pressure next to a vacuum without a container. There's a common rebuttal. Not that it's a right rebuttal, but when there's a common rebuttal, that's the one that I'll spend more time looking at, because if most people think that gravity is a force, then that's where we're going to look. Now, the common rebuttal for gas pressure next to a vacuum without a container is, well, it's not gas pressure that you're breathing, moron. It's atmospheric pressure. And I see that a lot. So I wanted to challenge the atmospheric pressure claim. And Rumpus has agreed to be the sacrificial lamb tonight. So the Rumpus is going to be the counter argument. And it's going to be a bloodbath. So make sure you watch Rumpus get decimated, and he'll start stuttering and stammering and speaking very fast and trying to obfuscate the point. But he's going to die slow, painful, and with science demonstrating that he's completely incorrect to cite something called atmospheric pressure, because it doesn't exist. It can't comply with what it's defined to be. So make sure you check up with Ranty Flat Earth later on. I think it's 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. UK time tonight.
9
so
p.m.
that's about
9.
8 hours from now.
He's got it scheduled for 9 p.m. UK time. So I was going to ask my chat audience if I should put the uncut and after show before or after, and then ask you how long you anticipate it'll take.
I think it'd be about an hour. I should be over with an hour. But you know what Rumpus is like? He's like a cockroach. He doesn't want to die.
Well, if you go for 9, I'll wait for the chat tell me if I should do it before or after. So I'll wait to get their opinions. Please let us know in the chat if I should put the uncut and after show before that or after that. Just let me know. I just don't want it to clash. That's all.
Hey Anthony, when you ask him, just type in Google and type in atmosphere, and ask him what this envelope of gases are. Just ask him what those are.
Ask him what the envelope of gases are.
Yes, ask him what those are.
What's on screen, Paul? Should I be presenting you?
Yeah, I've got it on screen. This is just Google searching atmosphere, and just ask him what the envelope of gases are. Gases. We don't breathe.
It says the layer of gases. Where did you get envelope of gases from?
It says it on the screen. Envelope.
Does it?
Yeah, on Paul's screen it says the envelope of gases surrounding the Earth or another planet.
Yeah, that seems like another one of those weasel words.
Yeah, what are those things called gases? What are those? We don't breathe those?
Yeah, no, apparently they're not gases when we breathe them. They're only gases when they're in a container. But when we breathe them, we're called atmospheric gases.
Sorry,
what are the lungs?
Sorry, what does atmo mean?
Don't shoot the messenger. I'm only telling you what the moron.
Sorry,
These are my arguments against him tonight.
Just one second, Anthony. Hold on. A cum virus. I don't know if you're trying to say something, but you're making a lot of audio chaos. Maybe not. No worries. Sorry, Anthony.
Even just saying atmospheric pressure is begging a question from jump.
That's correct.
What's the atmosphere?
That's what I just asked. That's what I just asked. What does atmo mean?
Atmo just means air.
And what does sphere mean?
Lie.
So we've got
a question that you're on a ball.
So atmosphere is atmo, air, and sphere, begging the question fallacy.
And why did they name the aeroplane and not an air sphere?
Well, I've looked into that. There's two words for aeroplane. It's either aeroplane or airplane. So the difference being aero, A-E-R-O, and air being A-I-R. And depending on which word you use, airplane is flying over the plane. We're using air as the mode of transport. And aero means aerodynamic. So aerodynamic plane. But both of them refer to plane, referencing the P-L-A-N-E, indicating Earth being plane. Really, they should be called Earth spheres. So let's recall planes Earth spheres, because airplane will be what we would call them, right?
Yeah, if as they claim they're working on the fundamental principle that they're aligning with gravity, this not actual force that you can think of as a force but isn't actually a force, then yeah, you'd think that would be critical in the naming of it if it's doing something fundamental to the shape of the planet. Well, that not being the case has led to them being called airplanes because they just fly level.
Yeah.
So
Well, remember the new level is flying over a curve now. Remember that. So if you're flying over a curve, you can still be level. That's the
Yeah.
new rhetoric.
No, that's a contradiction in terms.
and pitching
No.
up and nosing down at the same time.
And that's another contradiction
Well-
in terms. No, level is not curved. Level is level.
Well, it says airplane first attested in English in the late 19th century, right? Prior to the first sustained powered flight, the word airplane, like aeroplane, derives from the French aeroplane, which comes from the Greek, I can't say air, and either Latin planus, which means level, or planos, which means wandering. So level, air level, yep. Planes level, yep, level. It's
Sea
not curved.
level,
Yeah,
air level.
same with horizontal. If you take the TAL off horizontal, you get horizon.
Yep.
Yeah, it's part of the same derivative word, right?
And the new thing they're saying too is the plumb bob. I hear Xanax say this, that it's the plumb bob that makes things level. Well, here's the question: what was your proof that the plumb bob is pointing to the center of a sphere? If you even use the plumb bob, plumb bobs point towards the ground. That doesn't necessarily mean they're pointing towards the center of a sphere. What's
Yeah,
the
that's
proof
their
of it?
that's their
Well,
input.
because it's pointing down, it's pointing to a sphere because we live on a sphere.
Yeah, that's their
That's
begging
where
the
that
question.
comes from in his brain.
That's their way of it's like the word hemisphere. It's their way of inserting their presupposition into their example. Well, the plumb bob's always pointing, pause, to the centre of my presupposed spherical Earth. So it's a way of inserting the presupposition slightly under the radar so you don't notice. Well, the plumb bob's always pointing towards the centre of the Earth. Now, your most uninitiated debater won't pick up on the fact that that's inserting the presupposition of their outcome. No?
There's exactly. There's an experiment I saw, came across it, and actually it helped give rise to the concave Earth. Is that they put plumb bobs down in a mine shaft, and they went several feet down, and they measured the distance at the top and the distance at the bottom, and actually they were flared out instead of flared in towards each other. They were flared out towards each other, and that was one of the proofs that they said it gave rise to concave Earth. So again, they've got to prove that the plumb bob is pointing towards the center of a so-called sphere.
Yeah, as I say, it's just a mechanism to insert that presupposition into the example so that those who are slightly less initiated don't notice. Shout out to Lightwave, who says, the lungs create a gentle vacuum to suck water through a straw, but somehow the, quote, emptiness of space doesn't suck out oxygen, end quote. Laughable argument. Thank you very much for your support, Lightwave. Really appreciate it.
Well, that brings up a point that I've been trying to raise. There's a difference between differential pressure and vacuum. I'm going to leave it right there. You guys can discuss.
Yeah, to have a gas pressure gradient or a gas pressure differential, you must first have containment. First, you have gas pressure, then you have a gas pressure differential. So without the container, there can be no gradient / gas pressure differential. There's no difference, it's just a rephrasing of the same straw man. Radius Dominus Gravitus Spiritus Sanctus. May the power of the not actual force be with you. Go in peace. In R you trust.
May your spirit find its peace in the pseudo-Westian to space. I should work on that a bit more.
What, pseudo McWestian 2 space?
Yeah, like a prayer type of thing.
Oh, I wouldn't want to dedicate it to any particular priest of their religion. We'd have to we'd have to retract shout outs every time we did a little blessing on these globe heads.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation you guys were having. I was earwigging while I was doing things around my apartment, but you guys were chatting about where this is going.
Yeah. I was looking at statistics about how many people officially from statistic companies were counted as flat earthers around countries. And it's in the hundreds and millions in some cases. Like
Were
hundreds
you
of
guys
thousands
aware that
or
recently
millions.
a Spanish third division football side changed their name to Flat Earth FC? Pretty
Yeah, I
cool.
saw that. Was it Mark Sargent that covered that?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
It's just the little details like that that do make you smile. I must admit, I've been getting into Mark Sargent more and more recently because he's releasing more and more of those sorts of news pieces. Now, typically, Mark Sargent just covers the current affairs of Flat Earth. That's his bit. And obviously goes out and does interviews about Flat Earth clues. Now, if the current affairs of the topic are exciting, obviously Mark's channel's going to be more exciting, and that's how it is at the moment. You know, in days gone by, every so often he'd come out something like the crashed satellite. He was the first that I saw that on his channel, and now it's things like, same with things like graffiti. You know, as much as I don't approve when people spray paint their cars or put flat Earth on something or stick stickers on somewhere, Mark's normally the one covering it if it's breached a mainstream audience somehow. So big shout out to Mark Sargent. Like I say, I've been watching his stuff more and more because he's been covering things like that, which are happening more and more often.
And recently, the last few days.
Well, I'm definitely not a fan of Mark Sargent, but anyway, I was still happy to find that little fact out.
Oh, what's wrong with Mark? Mark's a really nice guy.
We've had several arguments over this. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it again.
Were they on topic arguments or about personal things about him personally or you personally?
Oh, definitely on topic arguments.
Oh, then fill us in.
I remember I called him out about him believing in gravity and you know, him with his model and whatnot. So that was a few shows ago. Oh well, quite a few shows ago now. But yeah, so not really gonna rustle those feathers again.
No, feel free.
Is this unicorn?
It is.
This is unicorn.
Yeah, I remember. What's up, man?
Chocolate's got that good memory.
Why would you not want to air that grievance when chances are you probably appreciate that we will back you 100% in those grievances, right? You appreciate that, right? Mark's a good guy.
Oh, definitely, and you guys have, especially, namely you, Nathan. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to go on about it again because it's already been, you know, and we already, you know, went through the whole scenario. So yeah.
Well, I'm not going to pressure you to do it. It's one of those things when it comes up about DITRH, I shudder a little bit and go, I don't want to argue with someone I like. He's a mate. You know, Death is a friend. So do I want to slag him off? I'd like to hint at these things and hopefully he'll get the picture. But do I overtly want to say, Death reifies models? You know, no, I don't want to do that because he's a mate. And yeah, not quite as much so with Mark Sargent. Yeah, I've met him and he's a good guy and I've, you know, had plenty of contact with him over the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this. But yeah, if there's something that you feel is disagreeable, then you've got to speak out about it. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not demanding you do anything, but I'm saying that's my personal view on these things. I've taken my blows for doing exactly that with Bob Nodell. You know, it costs me dearly for a good solid 12 months straight in terms of, well, I won't go into how it cost me, but it cost me, I assure you. On that note, shout out to Alexander for the super chat. It says, heliocentrism is the biggest religion on flat earth in Are They Trust. Indeed. Thank you very much for your super chat. Really appreciate your support. But no, I would say, go ahead.
Well, like I had mentioned previously, for example, in my opinion, the work that they do, you know, turns a lot of people away from the real flat earth. Like, for example, the real real science behind what we discuss on this show. So in that sense, that's where I still disagree with him, because he still, whether he believes in it or not, like I had said before, he seems like a very smart guy, and he uses the scientific method for something, like how he understands our argument about the gas pressure. But he goes on a show and then says that he believes in a magical molecular force called gravity, and I shuddered at that. I couldn't believe he was saying that. But then again, he's got his model and whatnot, so he's got his little thing. So yeah, it's to be expected of someone like that.
Nathan, just put my screen up if you would. Just an update on Danny Faulkner. Last thing I said to him was that astronomy is not capable, in the same way that Einstein's theory of general relativity is not capable of complying with scientific method. Therefore, they're both pseudosciences. Because his PhD is in astrology, obviously it's a dagger to the heart. And then one of his warriors, Chris Hardy, the guy I mentioned before, he's jumped in front of him like a human shield, as the way I knew he would do. And I responded to Danny saying, you must say that what he just said before. He said, at best, you have a 6th grade education of physics and the scientific method, which means you know about as much as Jethro Bodine, whoever he is, does about these matters. It's senseless to continue discussion with one so willfully ignorant. And I said, Danny Faulkner, you must say that when I point out that astronomy and general relativity cannot comply with scientific method. Neither can perform any valid scientific experiments, hence why we have it as a housekeeping question. This is why I'm attacking you. You brush off my words with no good reason. Unless your work complies with scientific method, it's pseudoscience. Danny, nothing you push in your book complies with scientific method. So I give him the definition, and there's now a little graph underneath. Use in time for pseudoscience. And I've just put before Einstein, virtually nothing. General relativity comes out. It's been gradually declining ever since. And I put Danny's book at the top of it, just as a stab. But look at this guy, Chris Hardy. He says,
You're not presenting, by the way. You're not screen sharing.
Oh, what? No. Let's see what that's doing now. Share screen. Oh, I don't know why it's not screen sharing.
We're trying to round out your point anyway, because I'm about to round out the live show, so you've been doing pretty well anyway.
Well, Chris Hardy jumps in front of him and he says, your problem is that you mistakenly believe the experimenter must cause a change to an independent variable in order to learn anything from a scientific experiment. There is no basis for that epistemology. And then I said, obviously, here's 10 citations that again disagree with you. This guy's previously told me that gravity is not a force, and I gave him John gave him a 10 video citation that gravity is not a force. He never backed down and changed his position. He basically ignored it. I'm now giving him 10 citations that the independent variable must be manipulated by the researcher to prove that it is the cause of an experiment test. Otherwise, it's pseudoscience, and he just does not like it. I'm done.
Wow.
So another fruitcake decides to just say, we don't need to manipulate an independent variable in an experiment.
Yes. What was the guy's name again that said that, please, Anthony?
Chris Hardy. His message saying, you're taking a specific approach to experimenting and applying it too broadly on too generally. No, this is called science, dickhead.
Wow. So, Chris Hardy, you don't know what the scientific method is. Therefore, you don't know what science is. To declare that you don't need to vary and manipulate the independent variable is absolutely ludicrous. It demonstrates how little you understand. As Quantum Eraser would say, you'd fail 5th grade general science. And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of today's G+ and Discord panels for making this live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!